This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome to Q&A, the show where I take your questions and answer them here in video format. A ton of questions to get into, so let's just jump into it. First question comes from the homie War Ready. War Ready says, does David NJOKU have the same impact he had last year with the signing of JEUDY? It's a very, very important question. Shout out to War Ready. But very good question. Very good question. Now we have to talk about targenomics, right? And what I mean by targenomics are the economics of targets, right? Basically, how are you going to divide all of these targets amongst all of these players? So let's look at how many targets they're going to be to give away. The player with the most pass attempts last year, so the most targets to give, was Sam Howell at about 612. I believe if you look at the Browns numbers from 2023, they threw the ball about 600 times throughout the season. So they were on the pretty high end, 624 times. They're not going to throw the ball that much this year. It's on the high end. That would be one of the highest if they just threw it with Deshaun Watson, right? That would be #1 in the league. So you're probably not going to be at 630 something targets to give out. And then you have to imagine there's a percentage of these attempts that aren't targets because they're throwaways or non-catchable passes that don't get credited as targets. So let's say the Browns have a budget of about 550 targets. Like, let's see, that's how many targets they have to give this year, which might be less than the amount of targets that they had last year, because you have to consider Nick Chubb's going to be healthy, hopefully, so they're going to run the ball a little bit more often. Even if Nick Chubb is not healthy, you hope that Deontay Foreman and Jerome Ford provide more of a consistent run punch that you can rely on. Either way, you hope the run game is better than last year so you can run the ball more, because we know Kevin likes to keep his run pass even. He prides himself in that. So let's say you have a budget about 550 targets to give. It sounds like a ton, but then you have to divide the pie, right? 130 targets off rip going to Amari Cooper. So now you're already down to 420. Then you get to David NJOKU. He's another premium target. You want to give him about 130 targets. That'll line him up with some of the best tight ends in the NFL. Boom. So you're down to about 290. Now you have to divide 290 targets between Elijah Moore, between JEUDY, between Cedric Tillman, between whichever running back you're going to get the ball to in the receiving game. More than likely said Jerome Ford. Some of those attempts are going to go to Nick Chubb as well. You have Jordan Atkins, you have David Bell, Jamari Thrash, whoever you want to add in there who could get some targets. 290 for all those miles. It's not a ton of targets, right? So let's go and start with Elijah Moore, right? Elijah Moore last year had 104 targets. No chance in hell he sees that many targets. Most he'll see is about 80. Now, JEUDY last year saw about 80 targets. And also on the flip side, on the exact opposite side of that, Browns paid him, he saw 87 targets. The Browns paid him $17 million. That is money you pay for somebody who's going to get north of 100 targets, right? So 290, I would say he's not going to get 130 targets, but he's probably going to get like 110, right? So let's say, meet me in the middle, 105 targets for JEUDY, which means about 80 targets for Elijah Moore. And then you would probably have to take the remaining target budget out of everybody else, right? Because you only have 105 targets for everybody else on the team, which sounds like a lot, but it's really not. So it's going to be tight. The Browns' budget for targets is tight, right? You have 2 premium targets, 1 guy that you want to get a triple-digit amount of targets. Those targets are going to be tight this year, but they should be able to make it happen. Now, as far as logistically on the field, I think David NJOKU and Jerry Jeudy will work well together. The reason I think that's true about these two and working well together is I think their skill sets kind of complement each other. Both of these guys can be yak guys. Both of these guys, you know, can be used at different parts of the field, right? David NJOKU is somebody who's really a seam buster. Jerry Jeudy is somebody who can work from the inside, from the middle part of the field to the outside part of the field. So you can play a lot of combo routes off of those two to try to like get a linebacker on Jerry Jeudy or force a linebacker onto David NJOKU. Having somebody who's a credible threat in the slot is going to benefit David NJOKU. Now, where David NJOKU's impact might be hurt is with Nick Chubb being back, right? Because what David NJOKU became for the Cleveland Browns at the end of the season was their best option to get 5 yards on first down, right? You want to get ahead of the sticks. You want to get 4 or 5 yards on first down. It wasn't with running the ball with Jerome Ford. It wasn't with running the ball with Kareem Hunt. Those were abysmal try to get 5 yards on first down options. Your best chance to get 5 yards on first down for the Cleveland Browns was to throw the ball on stick to David NJOKU, let him sit in the middle of the field and run. That's not going to be the case anymore, which means they're going to have to get a little bit more deliberate with the targets that they give David NJOKU and a little bit more creative with the targets that they give David NJOKU, which might change the ease of those targets for David. So that's going to be something interesting to watch. I don't think Jerry Jeudy has as much as an impact on David NJOKU as Nick Chubb and some other forces for the Cleveland Browns might impact David NJOKU, but David's going to get his targets. I think the budget can work itself out. It's just going to be tight for everybody else, right? You're going to make those targets happen for Jerry Jeudy because you paid him. You're going to make those targets happen for Amari Cooper. You're going to make those targets happen for David NJOKU, which means for Elijah Moore, you know, right now he has 80 targets. But it could easily be if Cedric Tillman starts showing up and he doesn't, that he splits some of them targets to Cedric Tillman, right? And Cedric Tillman ends up with 60. He ends up with 40. It's going to be real survival of the fittest outside of those 3 when it comes to the targets, because this is not that many to go around. But that's Targonomics for you. Appreciate that question, War Ready. The second question comes from Kel Bell, who says, who is the undisputed leader of men in all 3 phases, offense, defense, and special teams for this Cleveland Browns football team? I like this one, but I don't know, man. I don't think that's how that goes. I don't think there's one leader on the football team that just seems kind of weird to me. I think the way that leadership works in football and for a lot of things is there's a lot of small groups that are led by people in those small groups. I don't think there's one undisputed leader. Like, it sounds like it's on some alpha male stuff or whatever it is. That's not how any of that works in my eyes, from what I've seen and what I've heard from NFL players about how that leadership works. You know, it's about the group coming together, working hard, and believing in what they can do together is the important thing. You know, I don't want to make this about one individual. And I think when we do make things about one individual is when we overprescribe traits to people. Like, we just get very messy when we try to put all of the credit or all of the leadership on one person when it's really a group effort. Like, leadership is truly a group effort. It's been true at every facet of my life. Jonas says, you've been doing YouTube game for a minute now. What keeps you motivated to keep putting content out? I just like talking about football, like, to keep it honest with you. It's not like I just got to wake up every day and motivate myself and all of this. I like to talk about football. I get a chance to talk about football here. Sometimes I could get tired. Like, it's a job like any other where you get exhausted, where it's too much at times. You need to manage it. But at the end of the day, what keeps me motivated is I like to watch football, and I sure as hell love to talk about it. And that's always going to motivate me to turn on the camera and chat about some football with people. Even though sometimes the discourse do be getting crazy, I like to talk football. Like, at the end of the day, that's what kind of keeps it going for me, at least. All right, the next question comes from Jag, who says, when would Deshaun Watson's extension talks begin? This is interesting, right? Because I have no clue. And the reason I have no clue is because I don't know how much the Browns feel like they need to be convinced. I know there are a lot of people who watch the Browns, who aren't associated with the Browns, who are fans, who feel like they need a mountain of evidence to be convinced that Deshaun Watson is back and he's going to be good for a legitimately long amount of time. Even I would be somebody who's like, hey, if he has a good season this year, I don't know if it convinces me enough to where I'm ready to jump in and do an extension with him. But I have no clue on where the Browns are on this, right? Because they did sign him to a $230 million contract. They have not faltered on their commitment with him. They have not even showed that they're even close to faltering on that commitment with him, which means that if they see a good season, it's just going to be confirmation of what they thought, and they're going to probably roll out that extension as soon as possible. It's interesting. Like, that's an interesting one. Like, we've talked so much about doomsday scenarios with Deshaun Watson that we've ignored some of the more interesting scenarios that could pop up, and this is one of them. Because, yeah, what if Deshaun Watson balls out? What if he is one of the top quarterbacks in the NFL? What if he does look like 2020? Do you trust it enough to give him an extension, given how up and down the last couple of years have been with his health, with his ability to stay on the field, and with his product, the play that he's put on the field? Would one season be enough to convince you to jump in and give him another huge extension? I don't know the answer to that. Like, I'm dead serious. I don't know the answer to that. Like, I feel kind of similar to how I feel about Baker, where I'm like, I kind of want to see it for 2 seasons before I want to throw a bunch of money at it. But where I'm at and where the Browns are at might be 2 different places. Where fans are and where the Browns are might be 3 different places. And it's just one of those things we have not talked about enough. And that is a very pointed question. Like, I'm glad you asked it. What if? Like, seriously, let me know in the comment section. If Deshaun Watson balls out, like, I mean balls out, 4,400 yards, 35 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, the Browns advance to at least the conference championship game, you giving them that extension in the offseason? I think some of y'all going to think about that more than y'all think. Thank you for the question. Clark Holloway says, do you think tight end and linebacker are the Browns' weaknesses as far as depth goes if a starter gets hurt? Probably, right? Probably. If David NJOKU goes down and we're left with Jordan Atkins, yeah, it's not going to be great. If JOK goes down and it's just like Jordan Hicks and Nathaniel Watson, and I don't even know who else, it's probably not going to be great. So yeah, I would agree with that. I think they probably have the least amount of depth. They could probably withstand the least amount of injuries at those positions. I do also think that if you do have an injury that goes down at those positions, you have enough personnel around it, not necessarily in those position groups, but around those position groups, to where you can adjust. For example, if a linebacker goes down, the Browns will just play small, put Grant Delpit on the field with Ronnie McLeod more often, and that's their solution to play if they're down a linebacker, right? If the Browns will lose a tight end, they will just utilize, James Hudson as an eligible tackle more often, and then utilize a extra wide receiver. So instead of David NJOKU getting a bunch of targets in the game, they'll probably spread that out between Elijah Moore, Cedric Tillman, and maybe even Jamari Thrash. So they have pieces in place to adjust if an injury goes down. Those pieces just don't play tight end or linebacker, if you feel what I'm saying. So it's going to be a little bit more of a maneuvering there. So yeah, I guess that's right there. But that's going to be it for this Q&A. I appreciate y'all for asking these questions. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.